instead of preaching a sermon today at this early hour, but I guess you're here. This is, I think, one of the first times I've been here this early in the morning. But instead of preaching a sermon, I want to tell a story. A story through another's eyes. You would not recognize my name if I were to tell you. I'm famous in the recording of history, but by sheer happenstance, very impersonally. It's strange the way human lives intertwine in the stretch of years that we have. Who would have foreseen that my fame would stretch into the years far ahead, 2,000 years? But you must hear my story. While my name is unimportant, the event that thrust me into the pages of history is vital. I grew up in the Roman world. I knew the usual oppression that comes when greed and authority are entrusted to small men. I felt the heel of Rome pressed against my neck. I saw the lifeblood of my family squeezed by poverty and hate until life was only a burden. And it was then that I shouted to hell with Rome and law and order, and what I got, and then ran. I robbed and raped. I fought and killed. I traveled fast and stole my keep. It was a fierce life, but you can push a man just so far. And I bitterly fought the world in every way I could, and found that while my poverty was not so great, my hate was all the stronger. It was in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius that I came to Jerusalem. This holy city of my lineage was just another opportunity for me. Every city was the source of my wants. In the dark of night, I came to the walls. Night protected me. It was a cloak that shielded me from my enemies. The bright light of day was my villain. As was my custom, I robbed a man in the misty morning of my first day in Jerusalem. Speed counts. Strike a swift blow to the back of the head and then strip him of treasure. He didn't have much money, but he did have a ring and 3 precious stones. Later in the streets of Jerusalem, I tried to sell the pins of precious stone. And in my stupidity, I tried to sell them to a dealer whom I, too late, saw had a bandaged head. The guards were quick and sure and thorough. The prison cell was foul with the remains of human life. The darkness that once had been so great a blessing now settled upon me with a heaviness that nearly drove me mad. How many days was that stone hole my prison? I do not know, for day was as night. But after an eternity, I was hauled before a fat and sweating official who didn't even look to my face. Quickly and with so little feeling, he said, "Crucifixion." Once more, the prison walls surrounded me. Crucifixion. Can you imagine it? No, you can't possibly imagine the horror that word brings. You in the 20,000-year future have idealized the word. It's something religious and distant, but I've seen it with my own eyes. I've heard it with my own ears. Nothing can take it from my mind. Crucifixion Death, horribly doled out. Death in small doses, death in endless pain, death in naked shame, death that never brings release. Would I turn into a raving animal before the bar was lifted? A thief in Rome's world has no rights, and a sentence of death if caught. Crucifixion. But in the last dark moments of my earthly life, something happened. You know what? I don't mean an event. I mean a relationship. In my last sore hours on a cruel earth, I glimpsed another life. Now you've guessed. I hung with the forgiving one. I was taken to Golgotha on the very same day that the rabbi died. My sentence was meted out, as was his. Yet can you believe that I would not trade that day for anything in this world or the next? Can you believe that even death was sacred that day? Can you believe that even the cries of human pain became a chorus of something more than pain and death? No, you do not know about crucifixion. The cross is something to dangle around your neck or beautify your sanctuary or stand upon a car dashboard. I'm talking about sanctified death. It was not until my release from earth that my knowledge was complete. But in the hours before my horror, I knew that many things were happening to make turbulent this city of God, this Jerusalem. For one thing, a hero was welcomed. The crowds outside my prison threw branches upon his path. They welcomed him in the tradition of messiahs and conquerors. He could have had the whole place that day. God knows what gave him his power. I could not see him, but I knew that his armies must have conquered fierce enemies. His tribute from the spoils of battle must have covered the backs of 100 horses. His armor must have shone like fire in the brightness of the sun. Hosanna were the shouts I heard. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, were the words that even reached the depths of my prison cell. And in the stench of my prison, I could imagine the grand acclaim being given this great hero of the people. Hosanna! Hosanna! I heard their words. Within hours, the rumbling of tension were evident in the loud and ribald words of the guards. The talk was of the Jewish temple, of argument, of bickering. The simple rabbi from the north was speaking cutting words about the sacred priests. They could recite prayers in beautiful words and perform the acts of the temple with great precision. But this rabbi said they were whitened sepulchres, nice looking on the outside, but filled with decay and death. This rabbi even classified the proudly religious as delinquent, like me. But it was not all talk. The slave who brought the gruel said that fighting started in the outer court of the temple. Money changers were offering sacrificial coins for offering, were thrown out of their place of business by this rabbi. God's house, he had shouted, shall be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers. In the last hours of the second day before Passover, the Roman guards were given orders to fulfill. Next day, in the morning, would be the crucifixion. And this rabbi also. He had preached too much. He had acted rashly in the face of the learned ones. and now he would pay for his crime. Bruised, he was brought into the prison. His trial had been during the night, and Pilate had turned him over to the executioners. The rest of the night and early dawn were filled with the coarse good times of the guards who mocked and tortured him. And soon I was brought out of my cell, and the sunlight took away my eyesight. How long had darkness been my only light? The guards were now hot and angry. They spurred us on and shoved the crowds that came to see. I was strapped to a wooden beam, and it didn't come to me until the trudging began that I was carrying my own cross. The wood whose sap stuck to the hair of my head would soon receive the blood of my body. Once more the horror and fear and hate crowded out the world. March, 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 the whip. Crude animals of soldiers spoke with foreign voices as they pushed us. Behind me were two men, one screaming for mercy, struggling at his bonds and guards. The other was the rabbi. He intrigued the crowds to a strange silence. He was strong in build, yet his body was now reddened and his forehead streaked with blood. His back was ribboned with the lash. He said nothing. He made no sign. March, 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 the whip. My own step had slowed and perspiration poured from my body. March, march. The rabbi fell. The end of his beam of wood crushed into my heel. I cursed him as I swung around, but before the sound had truly left my lips, something happened. He was looking into my eyes, and I into his. How long is eternity? Is it 1 second? Is it the time between the shout of march and the whip? Who is this man who could make me regret a curse as I walk to my death? I do not know what he said for sure, but it seemed like words from my distant past. Sorry, friend. Sorry, brother. When had I ever used such words or had them given me? But the look held more. In the center of all the heat and the hate and the shouting and the cursing, in all that furnace of death, those eyes were still and calm and loving. It was not the look of a mother to a child nor a husband to a wife. It was the look of a very strong man to one who was very weak. Then the whip crashed down on my shoulders, and another upon his back and arm, but his eyes did not falter. Another man was given his cross to carry, and with stumbling steps we made our way out of the stone gates of the city, through the very arch where that great leader of the people had been welcomed as a hero. And here upon these pavement stones the crowds had so recently thrown their psalms of joy upon the air to usher in that great conqueror. And now through that same gate, 3 criminals exited. Outside the gate, down the dirty path, and then up the ascent of the hill, Golgotha, upright posts grew from the rock and the bones that covered the ground. Nothing green grows on Golgotha. He was crucified, and I, and the third man, in a line as we had been pulled from the city. My arms were fastened up, and I was hung and hung and hung. And he was nailed to the beam. The Romans liked variety in their sport, and we were then left to die. On the way from the city, I had not clearly heard his words, although his eyes had spoken. Now there was no mistake. He spoke strongly and clearly in his Galilean accent. "Father, forgive them. They do not know what they are doing." Can you believe that? Forgive them. And as he spoke those words, his executioners stood below him and tossed dice for his clothing. And a sign was put upon his cross. It said, "King of the Jews." There was great laughter as those Roman soldiers fastened it above his head. Seeing the sign, the third man shouted to the forgiving one to perform a kingly feat that would save us all. How stupid! I shouted my report to him, but turning to the center cross, I said words that I had never said. I asked. I did not demand, nor intimidate, nor curse. I asked, "King of the Jews, think upon me as you enter your kingdom." And his reply was strange and yet complete. "Today, you will be with me in paradise." Such a promise coming from such a man is real. Strange, I didn't question. And from that moment until the veil of death, I was a new man. Strange that I would talk so. For the first time in my life, someone sought to share my burden. "You shall be with me." It was so different from the curse and the hate and the yawn of indifference, the look of disgust, the final words of sentence. And in a short time, when time no longer mattered, the forgiving one had made life beautiful. Even Rome's heavy hand, the childish ornaments of the priestly garb, the taunts of the crowds, these did not matter or bother. In the darkness of the afternoon, he died. One more word was spoken. "It is finished. Into thy hands I commit my spirit." The beating of the body had finished its work. But this was no more. And his promise was with me until, as the stars began to disappear in the early morning light, I breathed my last time. "Today you shall be with me." Do not marvel nor question that I speak with you of things that happened so long ago, of things that erase the lines between life and death. That was his message. The evil and the cunning of earth did all that it could to silence him, but it was not enough. All the fear and greed and hate that men and women could muster were thrust at the forgiving one. But they succeeded only in killing his body. And as I now know, that is the least important of all.